Today I want to talk about the number one mistake that I see parents of autistic kids making. And I'm not talking about neglectful parents. I'm talking about parents like you who are in it, loving, committed, doing everything they can to help. So what is that mistake? It's using discipline or punishment to try to change behavior when that behavior is really their child saying, I can't handle this yet, or I need help with this. The problem with that approach is that it assumes our kids are making a choice, and discipline is designed to help somebody choose better or differently next time, right? Yes, there are times when discipline makes sense, when the expectation is crystal clear, when your child has the skills to meet it at that time, and they simply choose not to. We'll talk later about what that actually looks like, because those moments do happen, but in my experience with autistic kids, most of the behavior you're trying to deal with isn't that. It isn't the intentional breaking of the rules. The behavior happens because something is too hard, too overwhelming, or too confusing. And no amount of discipline will change that. I'll never forget, I had a conversation with a mom once over the phone, and she had an aha moment that led me to an aha moment of my own. I was explaining all of this to her, and she said, so you're saying I can't whoop the autism out of him? And I thought, yes, that is profound and brilliant and true. The solution is to stop asking, how do I get this to stop? And start asking, why is this happening and what will actually help? The turning point is in understanding what's beneath the behavior instead of trying to control it. At its heart, this approach is remarkably simple. Prioritize support over discipline. That's what we want to provide our children. Support over discipline. This shift changes everything. It takes you from exhausting battles to peaceful connection, and it sparks progress in your child in ways that force never can. Before you jump in, I just want to quickly introduce myself. I'm Andrea. I'm a parenting educator and transformational coach, and I've helped hundreds of families confidently navigate challenges and create peaceful homes. I also have my own experience raising an autistic child. My son is now 26. So I mentioned that I would share why this happens. So if you've been focused on stopping behaviors, it makes perfect sense. You've been trained to think that that's the job. Professionals, schools, even your own upbringing, they tell you, watch for triggers, stop the aggression, enforce the consequences. But here's what they don't tell you. Behavior is the symptom and not the root. An example I heard that helped me understand it, and I used to help parents understand it, this is the idea that, like, if you got a splinter and then just put a Band-Aid over it, right? The symptom might be, the redness and the infection, but the root is the splinter. You got to take out the splinter. If you only treat the symptom, you might get a short break, but it'll keep coming back in a different form. When my husband and I were raising our son, we used to say parenting him was like a whack-a-mole game. We would get one behavior under control and another would pop up somewhere else. So instead of asking, how do I get this to stop right now? We need to ask, what is making this hard for my child and what can make it easier? Because the goal isn't good behavior just in this moment. I mean, we do want that, right? But the goal is capacity. It's giving your child the tools to handle hard things bit by bit and without overwhelm taking over. That's where the growth happens. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This kind of mindset shift and transformation doesn't take place quickly or all at once, but I can also tell you, based on my own experience and working with hundreds of parents, that it makes all the difference and it's definitely worth it. Let's get into some examples to show you how this works. Let's start with toothbrushing. So imagine your child refuses to brush your teeth. For many of you, you're not going to have to imagine it. It happens all the time. You try rewards with no luck. Maybe you try some consequences and get an instant meltdown from that. Traditional advice tells you, set a firm limit, use a token board maybe, take away privileges. But if your child has sensory sensitivities, maybe to the toothpaste or the toothbrush, or anxiety around toothbrushing, none of that's going to work because the why hasn't been addressed and pressure doesn't grow skills. It shuts them down. Let's use as another example, taking your child to the playground. A mom I work with told me, every time I take my children to the park, my daughter winds up in a meltdown when it's time to go home. She screams, she hits, sometimes she even runs away. So she thought her child was being defiant, right? Defying the rule that it was time to leave. So they tried countdown warnings. Then they took away playground trips because if you're not going to behave, you don't get to go to the playground, right? A consequence. And it got worse when they did go. So what we were able to figure out was that she wasn't just mad about leaving. She was actually overwhelmed. The transition was too fast for her. The environment was chaotic, and she had no way to handle that sudden transition. So we changed the approach. We added in a calming routine before getting in the car. So mom would preview the plan with the daughter before they went so she knew what to expect. Then she made the goodbye. She added some silliness instead of making it abrupt. She added in a routine where she had a little water and a little snack, and the transition got much easier. The daughter still didn't love leaving, but the meltdown stopped because it was never about defiance in the first place. It was about nervous system support. That's what she needed. I mentioned earlier that there are times when discipline makes sense. That's when the expectation is clear, the skills are in place, your child has the regulation to use those skills, but chooses not to. And to be honest, with autistic kids, those conditions are more rare than you think. Even when they know the rules, sometimes what looks like defiance is really just dysregulation. So it's important to be sure which it is before we treat it as a choice. And I always say to parents, when in doubt, treat it as dysregulation. Here are a few situations that can be true choice moments. So one, they've been playing a game, the timer goes off, and they calmly said, "One more round," before starting it again without permission. That might be a place where you can see they have their themselves together, they're regulated, and they just did something without permission. Another example might be they're helping you in the kitchen and you've reminded them about safety and they still decide to toss a spoon at a sibling for fun. Now, again, that can be tricky because it could be something that the sibling triggered, right? It might be the onset of dysregulation. But I'm trying to show you here some examples of what could be intentional behavior, but I do have to say, I really do believe that most of the time it's a dysregulation problem. Another example that's tricky, right? You've agreed on the number of videos they can watch and they finish and they start another one with that little smirk or a look on their face that says, "I know what I'm doing." It doesn't mean that they do, right? That might be a case of intentional disobeyance of the rules, but it also might be that they just didn't have the impulse control in the moment not to start a new one. And punishment is not the most effective way to help them build the skill of impulse control. In those situations, a consequence might make sense because it's about reinforcing a skill that they already have and that they can access in the moment. But most of the behavior we've been talking about today, that's not what's happening. And most of the behavior that you are struggling with, that's not what's happening. And when that's the case, discipline isn't just unhelpful, it actually works against you. True progress comes when we step back and we say, what is making this difficult? And what support would help my child be successful in this moment? That might mean making the task shorter or simpler, maybe changing the tools, adding some co-regulation, play, or silliness, slowing things down, and then slowly growing your child's capacity in small, manageable steps that they can tolerate. It's not flashy, it's not instant, it's the only way that real growth happens. And when you shift from controlling behavior to building capacity, it won't always look like success at first. It might be really slow, it might be messy, it might be more emotional, but it is deeper because now your child's learning how to handle more, not just to perform better. It's not just pointing out mistakes, it's actively showing and supporting them to be more successful next time. They're building emotional flexibility. They're growing their self-trust, and they're relying on your connection instead of reacting to your pressure. That's where long-term change comes in. What you're doing every day, showing up, noticing your child's needs, adjusting when things aren't working, that's not just parenting, that's love in action. I get a little emotional saying that. Look, our world often misunderstands our autistic children, and your willingness to look beyond behavior is already changing your child's life in ways that will last forever. If this approach resonates with you, I'd love to help you take it further. This is what I do in my coaching program. I work alongside parents to help them learn to tell the difference between when to discipline and when to support, to figure out what's making things hard for their child and building support that works in their home for their child in the context of their life. You can find the link in the description box to see how we can work together. Because your child doesn't need to be pushed to do better. They need to be supported to grow. And you deserve to feel confident in how you're helping them get there. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, I hope you'll drop a like, and I'll see you in the next one.